Okay, today we are going to be making a graded wash. A graded wash is where you go from one solid color to the white of the paper. In watercolor, we don't use white watercolor or gouache. You can use it, but in this case, we're just going to be using the white of the paper and going from a color to just water. So if you want to have really pure, clean water, it might be a good idea to use 2 water buckets. But in this case, I just used one. I used a large water bucket that had plenty of water in it, so it's pretty diluted when I do put some color into it. So to start out this graded wash, you don't need to mix up a ton of paint. In a flat wash, you do want to mix up quite a bit of paint so that you don't run out halfway through, but on a graded wash, we just need a little bit of paint to start, and then we're going to be just adding water the rest of the time. But the beginning of this wash starts out really similar to our flat wash. You just start out with a solid color. You want to mix it up about the same consistency as the flat wash, like cream or like whole milk. You want a good solid color. And then you start out with another bead. So we apply the paint to the board until we get just enough paint on there to get a bead. And I really like using the side here where we have the tape on each side of this bead. I use that to mix the water into. So you get a good bead, and then you just take a little bit of water. We don't need to dip the whole brush in, just the tip of the brush in the water, and you just introduce it right here on the side and then mix it into the bead. So you take a little water, dip it here on the side, and then mix it into the bead and pull it down. And we're just going to get a little more water each time. So each time we apply our brush to this wash, we're adding a little bit more water. But each time I try to dip the brush in just a little bit more, a little deeper into the water as well, just to add a little more water. But I'm still not dipping the entire brush in. We're just dipping the tip in and getting some water. Like I said, you just mix it in on the side there. And I'm tapping to get some of the paint that's in the brush out. It's about halfway through, you're going to want to really start taking the paint out of your brush so that you're not mixing more paint into this wash, but you're just really mixing more water. So we can dip the brush a little deeper and tap off the brush or rub it on the side of the bucket to take out some of that paint. You want to plan your 50% value or halfway value between your solid color and the white of your paper. You want to plan so that that's about halfway through your wash. At this point, we're just adding pretty much water. There might be a little bit of paint that's still in the brush, but we're mixing in a lot more water and trying to clear out most of that paint. We don't want to clear it all out at this point, but we're getting close to where we want to just start really cleaning off the brush. And right at the end, you really just want to clean your brush off and just get pure water where you don't have any paint at all, but just pure water. So right down here, we're just going for pure water. Now, there is a little bit of blue in that water, but that's a lot of water, so it's really diluted. But like I said, if you want to actually get 2 buckets, you can really get it clean, so you're just using pure water at the bottom there. And then you will want to get rid of your bead at the end, so dry off your your brush on a piece of paper towel and soak up the remaining water there at the bottom, and that is the graded wash. Okay, so for this next wash that we're going to do, we're not going to be using tape, and we're going to just paint this graded wash in a shape. This time I thought we would split the wash, because oftentimes as you're working, you have to do this. You have to split your wash into multiple branches. We're just going to do 2 branches, but we're going to start out with a solid color, and then as we go down, we're going to try to get to the white of the paper, but we're going to also try to do this while splitting our wash into 2 sections. So we start out the same again, just a solid paint. And with this one, it's a little more challenging because we don't have that side area on the tape where we can introduce the water. So on this one, we're going to be introducing the water right to the bead. So we want to start out with a good solid bead to begin with. And we need to build that up. But once we have our bead, it's really helpful for introducing the water that we're going to be introducing to this painting, because we don't want to scrub the paper. We just want to lightly touch on that bead and drag the bead down across the wash. So you have to be kind of delicate with this. You just get a little bit of water at the beginning, and instead of just painting all over it, just introduce that to the top of the bead, and that water will mix in, and then you can go ahead and take that bead and pull that bead down. And some people like to do it a little quicker and less carefully, I guess. But if you take your time and just introduce it to the bead, I find that is the best way to keep the wash really smooth and the transitions subtle. Okay, so now we we going to split this bead into 2 different sections. It's not that complicated. We have a large bead because we're adding just pure water now, and so our bead's been getting larger and larger as we're getting further down here. So it's going to be pretty easy to split this bead in 2. But what you want to be aware of is once you split that bead into 2 sections, it's really easy to focus on one side and neglect the other. And you don't want to do that. You want to go back and forth and make sure that each half of the bead gets the same amount of attention so that it stays smooth. And whoops, I made a little mistake there. Anyway, you want to just keep on adding to the bead and work both sides evenly. The longer it sits, that bead sits on one side, the more likely you're going to end up with a line there. And we want to avoid all lines. We want to create just a solid, smooth transition. But if you can go back and forth, you have enough time. Even if you have 3 or 4 different branches, if you have good watercolor paper, it should be able to handle. You can neglect it for just a couple seconds where it won't actually produce a line in your paper. So you have a few seconds, but you kind of got to work consistently. Don't take a break and walk away from it at all. And also try not to rush it too much, because when you rush, that's when you make a mistake. That's when you accidentally splatter paint or do something that paint outside of the areas that you're trying to paint in. Now, I didn't get it quite to the white of the paper there, but what you can do is you can take your brush and just kind of soak out a little more of that paint right at the bottom. You don't want to go up to where it started to dry at all, though. Just settle for what you have at the bottom of the paper, and that should be good. So there it is. You can take a little paper towel and dab at it to soak up the rest of that paint too. Don't go crazy with that, or else you can actually end up creating lines in your work from that too. But that's how you paint a graded wash, and we'll go over a mingled wash next, but good luck painting.